All right, hey guys, this is video 2 of the series of 3, and in this one we're going to talk about CircleCI and how the CircleCI works for WildMe. So CircleCI is basically CI as a service, so it's managed. And when I initially was trying to figure out what kind of CI framework to use with Cypress as a testing platform, my first thought was Jenkins, because it was something that I was aware of, and some people on the WildMe team were somewhat at least familiar with. But after spending a couple of days just like hacking my way through Jenkins, I realized that there was probably an easier, more modern way of doing things. So I reached out to a couple of friends, looked on the internet, and it seemed like there was some pretty strong support in favor of CircleCI. So I checked it out and tried to get it set up, and the learning curve was alarmingly simple to get it set up. So this is what CircleCI looks like. If you go to the app, it'll bring you to the dashboard. Okay, and it'll go through all of the most recent jobs that you've had, whether they succeeded or failed. I've never in my life seen a screen full of successes, so this is really good news. So I've got a couple of my projects on this, including the wildMeCypress. Since the repo that I'm following is actually on Jason's, I can actually toggle between me and Jason, and I can see that his results are the same. If we want to look at some features of this project, we have to go to this little edit cog, and we can see that you have the option of following projects. So you should be able to sign up to follow the wildMeCypress. If you're added as a collaborator to the GitHub repo, that should probably be enough to allow you to watch it on CircleCI. And then that'll automatically start sending you emails if and only if the tests fail. Okay. Any repo on GitHub can be added automatically to CircleCI. So if CircleCI is hooked up with your GitHub account, it can actually look at your projects and start adding them here if you want to add them. So it's all pretty easy to set up. And the one thing that you do have to do is you have to create a directory in your repo called .circleci, and inside that directory you have to have a config.yaml file. So this config.yaml file is super straightforward. We have to specify which version of CircleCI we want to use, because the versions 1 and 2 are very, very different. And one of the cool things that version 2 offers are Cypress orbs. Are CircleCI orbs. And CircleCI orbs are basically just a bundles of configuration code that somebody else wrote that are available publicly, and you can just use them and plug them in here, right? So for example, Cypress actually has written a lot of CircleCI code, and they've written a couple of like job running scripts that you can just invoke by name and go ahead and run their code. Okay. So we have one job running in our workflow, and the job is Cypress/run. So if you visit the Cypress IO orb on CircleCI, you'll actually be able to see what that run entails and involves, and it's a lot more complex than this config file. And the only thing I have added or asked it to do is to store artifacts, right? So remember how when we ran Cypress locally, we could actually see it kind of walk through the DOM and all of our manipulations of the DOM and figure out what was going wrong and what was going right. Well, since CircleCI is hosted in the cloud, we don't necessarily have access to those runs in real time on the dashboard. So what we want to do is we want to store some of the artifacts associated with those tests. And that way, When we go back to our workflow, or our jobs rather, and we click on the particular job, if you click on artifacts, you can go to Project, Cypress, Videos, Facebook Live, and watch a video of a particular spec file run. So this is a 32-minute long video because there's a 10-minute wait for every single one of these tests, right? So we're waiting 10 minutes to see whether those results loaded within that 10-minute span. And of course, these are subject to change, right? These tests, I guess you can't really fast forward them, but you can watch what happens. You could also download this. And since the view was obstructive last time, here's where you would download it over here if you wanted to watch the video sort of not hosted. So it does actually store these artifacts for you if you ask it to. So I did mention this in the previous video, but the match check methods right now, even if the assertions are failing, the tests will pass. So that's not a behavior that's desired, and I'll definitely update that when I figure out how to fix it with the Cypress folks. But right now, it might actually be in your interests to check these tests manually to see whether the assertions are failing. Also worth mentioning that CircleCI has an API, so you can make API calls to kick off runs of certain branches or of repos that you have run before. Some of those API runs don't play well with version 2.0 yet, as I have come to discover. But we've figured it out, and we can get it to run only the match check only branch or the master branch, depending. So right now, JSONP has it set up so that the match check only branch is triggered every time IBIS is edited, right, by using one of these API calls to CircleCI. And the same is true when a new version of wildbook is deployed to that IP address that JSONP set off. So he has another API call that kicks off the master branch to run all the tests, including the tests of flukebook.org. So in the future, after tests pass or fail, you could trigger other deploys or builds, which is the point of CI in the first place. So right now, we're just using it as like an early warning system, but you can definitely use it to actually do CI if you wanted to only deploy something to production if it passed certain tests. And that's it for CircleCI.